Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu today signed the first set of executive orders of his administration looking to ease tax and enhance the ease of doing business at the same time. The four executive orders were the Finance Act 2023 effective date variation, the Customs Excise Tariff Variation Order, the excise tax on telecoms, as well as the suspension of green tax on single use of plastic and levy on certain vehicles. Making the announcements on behalf of Mr. President earlier today was Dele Alake, who is the President's Special Advisor on Special Duties, Communications and Strategy. Take a listen.
In his inaugural speech, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu promised to address business-unfriendly fiscal policy measures and multiplicity of taxes. Consequently, President Bola Tinubu, in fidelity to the pledge to put Nigerians at the center of government policies, has signed the following executive orders. Executive Order 1, the Finance Act, Effective Date Variation Order 2023, has now deferred the commencement date of the changes contained in the Act from May 28, 2023 to September 1, 2023. This is to ensure adherence to the 90 days minimum advance notice for tax changes as contained in the 2017 National Tax Policy. Executive Order 2, the Customs Excise Tariff Variation Amendment Order 2023. This has also shifted the commencement date of the tax changes from March 27, 2023 to August 1, 2023, and also in line with the National Tax Policy. Order 3, the President has given an order suspending the 5% tax on telecommunication services as well as the excise duties escalation on locally manufactured goods. 4, further to his commitment to creating a business-friendly environment, the President has ordered the suspension of the newly introduced green tax by way of excise tax on single-use plastics, including plastic containers and bottles. In addition, the President has ordered the suspension of import tax adjustment levy on certain categories of vehicles. Like I said earlier on, any vehicle of 2,000 capacity, engine capacity and above, which the tax was imposed upon, has now been suspended. So it means that for the meantime, in the interim, the tax imposed on any vehicle of 2,000 cc and above is now suspended.
Our aim is not to tax production. Our aim is to increase our productive activity, capacity to produce. Then we can tax our consumption. And that is the direction of our economic planning. And then we want to increase the trust that we have in government. And if you observe what has happened in the last few days, the last few months that we've been here, we've kept to our word. Part of what we are doing today, just to increase this trust that we are here to do what is the best for the country.
Let's get industry analysis into this latest development now as we bring on Yomi Olugbenro. He's a partner and West Africa tax leader at Deloitte, Nigeria. A warm welcome to the show, and we thank you for coming in at this very short notice. Thank you so much. This is a very big development, just as big as it gets. We've got to throw it straight to those of you who are industry experts into this. Let me give me your first word on these 4 executive orders.
Well, Bosun, I think as you can hear from that press release, it's a bit of good news and a pat on the back, if you like, to taxpayers. I think it's bad enough for taxpayers to have to grapple with additional taxes or higher rates, for taxes. But when those changes come in such a sudden, hurried manner and just rush through, it creates a completely different kind of disruption to business planning. And for me, I think this is an appropriate signaling to the markets and to the tax-paying public that we will collect taxes in a lot more responsible manner. We need to engage appropriately. We need to ensure that implementation date, effective date, all of that are in sync with extant rules and regulations. So the push for, if you like, the delay for the commencement of the year, for example, by an extra 30 days, exactly in tandem with, an existing national tax policy, which says that you must have a minimum of 3 months when you have new laws changed. You must allow at least 3 months for taxpayers to get acquainted with the provision, put their houses in order, and begin the implementation. But we didn't have that done. If you remember, many of these amendments, the Finance Act of 2023, for example, was signed on the 28th, of May.
A day before inauguration.
A day before inauguration. A day before the penultimate night, actually, of the president. And of the president, yes. Right? And the act itself actually specified 1st of May.
Kind of retroactive in terms of signing.
Retroactive. And so what the FRS did subsequent to that was to just look for a practical measure, knowing fully well that we didn't get to see the law until later in June, right? The FRS in its own wisdom say, we will push the implementation date to 1st of July and all of that. But this has now put finality. It's an executive order, 1st of September being the commencement date for the new Finance Act.
Expect some amendments to the Finance Act provisions now that the implementation date has been shifted? Do you think there should be? If yes, what needs to change?
I think what's been changed for now is just the implementation date. I wouldn't expect a lot of energy to be invested in trying to change the Finance Act or the provisions of the Finance Act. What we actually need is a holistic review of, the various taxing legislations, because as you know, this is the 4th in the series of Finance Acts, all right? Some of the provisions of the Finance Act 2021 were amended in Finance Act 2023, and the same cycle had happened in the prior year. So this is part of the thing that creates uncertainty and confusion in the market. So when you, as good as annual passage of Finance Acts could be, you then create different kind of confusion. So taxpayer needs to remember, how many Finance Acts have, been existent over a period of time, which one changed what, and all of that. So once you do that for maximum of 7 to or thereabouts, some would say 10 years, what you then need is to consolidate all of the codify and get all of those pre-existing legislations repealed and all of the regulations repealed, and have a new enactment that consolidates everything. It's simpler, it's easier, and there's a single version of the truth.
How do you think this Finance Act, do you think it's robust enough to tackle the various fiscal imbalances in the economy, structurally speaking, that this administration will have to deal with, considering where we're coming from? Do you think this Finance Act is just what it is?
No, I don't think so. I think the Finance Act, it's a short-term palliative, right? If you cast your mind back to the return to democracy, right from President Obasanjo, there were a lot of attempts made at, revamping the law. Some laws, some bills were submitted just right at the beginning, and all through his 8 years and then the subsequent administration, we didn't have some of them passed. And so what, from a pragmatic perspective, what the past administration has done is to say, look, if it's going to take us quite a long time to get through the parliamentary process of enacting new laws, how can we tweak, how can we make the most that we can make of the existing law through executive order, through Finance Act, and all of that. And that's what has done. I think there are a lot more fundamental issues that if we don't tackle those, we won't get our fiscal space
how do we get a holistic review of our entire tax basket of laws?
I believe this has already been mooted. This has already been talked. We know that it's easier said than done. Part of some of the policy documents that are in circulation, purportedly owned by this administration, is an attempt to do a more holistic review of the whole taxing legislation. So what is done is to say, look, I came in and practically the first day of my assumption of office, I already have to grapple with taxpayers confronting me with complaints about, I got to see the Finance Act 2023 after the president has been sworn in, the new president has been sworn in, and it was supposedly signed, the night before. The fiscal policy measures, that were also varied by those executive orders and all of that. Some of them were signed in the twilight of the administration, sometimes
So
in
this
May.
is a kind of rolling back some of the things that President Buhari signed before he left office. In his final days, in the manner of speaking.
Well, it didn't quite roll it back completely, but some bit of cushion. First, there are two essential things that were done with these executive orders. One is to move the commencement date
of implementation.
So buy some extra time for taxpayers to be able to grapple with them. So Finance Act 2023 stays. However, the implementation date is allowed to follow what the tax policy says. Now, but for the content of the fiscal policy measure, which is where you have the green taxes on single-use plastics and a certain category of automobile, excise on telecom and all of that, what the executive order says is a suspension. So meaning that it allows time for more consultation, and probably this will include some revision of rates or exclusion of certain items. So there's a lot more hope on the excise side and on the fiscal policy measures that there's a possibility that when the markets engage, when manufacturers engage and the operators engage, they will have a little bit of relief from there.
A bit of room to wiggle.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Well, how quickly then do you think? Because when you put out the various either suspension or removal, whatever, you've got to have a cabinet in place. How quickly do you think the new administration should have a cabinet in place to put flesh to all of this that we're talking about?
I actually do hope that we do it sooner than later. We had a similar scenario in the first term of President Buhari when we had to wait close to 6 months before we had the cabinet constituted, and the country paid dearly for that. I think the energy and the mood in the country and with this new administration is that it's clearly known that we don't have that luxury of time. The market will punish you, the economy will punish you. You saw what happened with the first 2-3 days of post-inauguration. The market was heavily bullish, so everybody saw a body language that looks like, we're ready to work, and we really need to build on that. A few days after that, you started seeing some bit of bearish trend, so now things are kind of balancing. I'm hoping that we don't have to wait, and we need to have the cabinet constituted so that appropriate organs and agencies of government can take this issue heads on.
How easy do you think President Tinubu and his team will be on this very rope they're walking in terms of getting revenue increase on one side and ease of doing business on the other, balancing social impact with the fact that they need every dime, every kobo, every naira on the table?
Well, I think the country will have to hold President Buhari very strongly, President Tinubu very strongly on his promise. He came on the back of I'm a market-focused leader. He came with antecedent of how he walked through very turbulent period, tenure in office in Lagos State, and it's a lot more complicated. But with that kind of a pedigree and the hope he sowed. He can't disappoint the masses of the country. He would need to do serious balancing, because quite a lot of the levers, that the president has got to pull are such that will impose some heavy pain, and it's already doing that. And so if you don't balance it with some of the fiscal measures that you have at your disposal, it will be tough for the economy.
So you don't think it's all about providing palliatives in terms of cash transfers and all of that? Do you think could use business tools, executive order tools, to incentivize the economy, incentivize manufacturing, industrial production, incentivize consumption that will allow the government to even collect more VAT that it wants to do?
I think it will be a mix of all of those and even more, including ensuring that whatever savings is we're able to make from all the subsidies being removed, whether it's from FX or from fuel, and all of that, we channel that to a lot more infrastructural financing, such that while those short-term palliative provide like some immediate cushion, what's actually going to get the economy back buoyant and for a long-term sustainable benefit is those investments in those critical infrastructure.
The 5% removal of telecom services, whatever, that's some good news, right?
Absolutely. Some good news, but it's a suspension, like I did say. Not a total removal. So it's suspended so that there's quite a lot of...
And there's no definite time as to whether it will come back, when it will come back.
At least nothing was said during the press conference, but it's understood that it's to allow a lot more time for consultation with the telecom operators. There's a lot of clarity that's actually required, what's covered. So the operators, those who are providing a lot of ancillary services within the value chain, you know, and all of that. So that needs to be done, and done also in a way that recognizes the fact that this is also a sector where a lot of capital injection and financing is still required to actually let the broadband penetration and all of that go well spread across the country.
Billions and billions of dollars in investment so far.
Absolutely, but you give some to get some.
They just do 5G, for example. Some of them are just rolling out 5G, and that's a whole lot of money. That's a huge investment.
That's a whole lot of huge investment, and sometimes we also look at penetration of these services from what happened in some of the eyebrow cities, what happens in Lagos, what happened in Abuja, and a number of cities. But if you travel well across these countries, you will know that there's a lot more investment that is still required to really get every part of the country to benefit from these opportunities.
From telecommunications sector. But again, folks were beginning to complain a little bit, by the way, that the telecom folks are charging us more for virtually everything than any other tax. They say, well, we make investment, we've got to pay more tax.
Absolutely.
But again, I think the Manufacturers Association will be having a very good night tonight. I don't know where they're having a party somewhere to celebrate this suspension of carbonated
taxes on tobacco,
and all of that. And because there's been a whole lot of issue around whether they should be suspended, when should it be implemented, should be a revert back to 2024 agreement. They complained that they were not told when the new one was signed before President Buhari left office and what have you. So it looks like a green light there for the locally manufactured, for local producers.
Absolutely, but I would say a window of opportunity because again, suspension doesn't mean absolute termination or removal, but this is a great opportunity. It at least shows that the president is willing to listen and is going to take in those feedback. If you listen to what Mr. Deleleke said, he reiterated the kind of sentiment, that manufacturers want to hear, knowing that we feel your pain, we understand that there's a bit of pressure in that area, and government will engage. We want you to trust us. We want you to know that we will implement these new policies in a very collaborative manner.
Is tax the removal or reduction the silver bullet for the deindustrialization of Nigeria?
I don't think so. I think there was some recent research that was done, even touching about the tax expenditure, of the country and how much of waiver and exemptions that we've granted in certain sectors. And when you do the mapping, you realize that not necessarily translating to the kind of growth and investment and productivity.
You give waivers, but you give the waivers, but you can't see the money. Just like food subsidy.
Absolutely. So what's required is that sometimes we provide short-term palliative for sicknesses and ailments that require more surgical intervention, and unless you do that, you're only going to be throwing money and incentives at many of these more fundamental issues and problems.
Set of executive orders. Do you think the next executive orders will go on those tax holidays and waivers?
No, it's already done. Actually, a significant part of it. The center focus of the Finance Act 2023 was that quite a lot of unproductive incentives were actually cleaned out. You see different kind of allowances and investments and reliefs that taxpayers who had previously enjoyed were actually cleaned out. So left with more fundamental incentive like Pioneer and free trade zone schemes that are operating within the country. So that's already been done. So by 1st of September, quite a number of the incentives and waivers that businesses enjoy will no longer be there.
It looks like September is the month we have to be on the lookout for. I don't know, I think it's September. September the 1st, I'm going to keep just mark that on my calendar. Do you think these executive orders are fundamental enough to drive the size of foreign direct investment, capital inflows that we need into Nigeria, do you think, or we're just still scratching the surface?
I think it's fair to say we're just scratching the surface, but it's a good place to start. It's a good place to start. I love the signaling effect of this kind of communication to say, look, there's been a lot of hue and cry as to why will this kind of changes be introduced at the tail end of an administration? How come we're getting to know about them months or weeks after they've been supposedly signed and all of that? And you're saying, look, hold on. We will review the whole process. We want to make sure that when laws are to be passed, if there are ex-ante rules guiding how they're to be introduced, we will follow all of that. So that's part of the assurance and the confidence that the market wants. Taxes are paid all over the world, but the rule of certainty, the rule of clarity, the rule of predictability needs to be brought into the system.
Know what you're paying, when you're paying it,
and
who you're paying to,
and what's your fallback when you are being wrongly asked to pay what's not supposed to be.
Resolution mechanism.
Dispute resolution mechanism that works and is timely, and you can be rest assured that it will be in your favor when you have the fact backing you up.
Interesting. Back to the balancing act of revenue against ease of doing business. How much more would you like to see happen moving forward? Broadly speaking, the administration needs heavy money, even from the local environment. How do you think that can be unlocked?
We need a lot of money, but I think the approach we adopt complicate our issue a lot more. What the government does quite a lot is we identify a problem and we're looking for a new tax type to help us solve that. That's why you have the new import levy, for example, introduced in the Finance Act for import that were brought out of Africa. And when you read through the commentary, it was meant to fund part of our obligation to our regional bodies, AFREXIM, ADB, and all of that.
Yes.
When it was telecom, we introduced IT levy. When it was education, we introduced education tax levy, and the list just
so
goes
we're just throwing tax all
so
over the place.
what we need is to consolidate, all right? Consolidate all of these taxes and get efficiency out of them.
Can we do something different from just throwing taxes at everything?
That's exactly the point.
They're going to ask additional 1,000 naira from your car. You're going to pay additional 1,000 naira.
That's
just
as
put it on the table.
ridiculous as it could get, boss.
Yes.
So when I need to pay 1,000 naira every year to prove that I own a vehicle for which I already have.
Perhaps you just write your name on the car, on the body of the car, and just write Yomi Olugbenro.
That's the height of ridiculousness.
I just it might just read the number. That's mine. So, but again, we can't keep throwing taxes at everything.
Absolutely. So let's get a lot more efficiency. So two fundamental issues that I believe it's on the table of the president as far as reforming the tax space is concerned.
Yes.
One will be tax consolidation. So we have too many levies, too many tax type that is creating compliance obligation. It's complicating the ease of paying tax. That's number one.
For those of you who are consultants, who have to wade through all the books.
But the truth actually is that some of those taxes are even, being implemented by non-state actors, and they just, complicating the market all the more. So do that. And then in addition to that, also unify revenue collection agencies. We have too many of them.
We need to unify not just the exchange rate.
No, not just the exchange rate.
Yes.
Unify the collection agencies.
Yes.
All right. We have too many of them. So you're dealing with customs, you're dealing with FRS, you're dealing with RAMFAG. You sometimes even law enforcement agencies get into the ring. Wanting to chase that. So,
but this is good news. This is good news. Let's celebrate this. Thank you so much. Alex, we're raising the curtain. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.